Okay, welcome back to our new episode of Relationship Reset. How are you, Nasim?
I'm doing really well, Renee. How are you doing today?
Not too bad. So, we're going to talk about, a topic that is somehow related to our last week's episode. It's about why divorce increased these days. For those listeners who missed that podcast episode, you might want to listen to episode 2, season 2, and we actually talk about, the awareness of, why divorce becomes much more increasing these days. But for today's topic, I want to relate it back to when it comes to divorce. Now, do you think relationships just ended, suddenly? Or do you think it's because of that slow disconnection between people over time? Like, what are your thoughts about this?
I think majority of the time, Renee, relationships deteriorate over time, and it's because they're not nurtured, because apologies are not given, the husband doesn't feel needed or respected, the wife doesn't feel appreciated or loved, and slowly over time, the kind of relationship erodes. This is why I think in season 1, we spoke about Friday night date night for husband and wife. So then you actually are looking forward to something each week. It doesn't have to be an expensive thing. It could be like a walk in the park with a cup of coffee or a little picnic, or maybe it is a weekend away, or maybe it is a nice restaurant. You can mix it up a little bit. But the point of the Friday night date night is to keep the relationship connected, because in the week you'll have work, if you've got kids, you've got school run, you've got this, you've got that going on, and all of these things can build up stress. So I think people don't realize over time how much stress they're under. And I'll give you an example of yesterday. I was coaching a client and he was saying that he was married for 15 years, but quite early on in the marriage, there was times where his wife didn't speak to him for 2 or 3 months at a time. And he thought, this is normal married life. He goes, I didn't think anything about it. And he goes, it wasn't till the relationship ended, I realized that this is something I should have addressed at the beginning. And then over the years, it just got worse and unbearable for both of them. And they end up breaking their relationship.
Oh
So
my goodness, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's an
I mean, you
extreme.
mentioned, yeah, I mean, like, you mentioned about two things about like, nurturing the relationship. And it's not something that just happened overnight, obviously, when it comes to, relationship failures, oftentimes because of that slow disconnection. And you did mention about, nurturing the relationship that you have. And I'm surprised, when you mentioned about relationship that, not talking to one another over time. I don't think that is something normal. But let's be real. Things like that happen. And people need to know that, whether it's the right thing or is it normal or is it not? Oftentimes people always mention about communication issues. On that note, is it okay not to talk for that long? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, obviously it's clearly not okay. But I think when people get into a rhythm, because he was saying, it was a love marriage. I chose to marry her. It wasn't an arranged marriage. So I just thought I had to put up with it because she was my choice, and I don't think his parents were too pleased about his choice. So he married her anyway. And I think that the fact that he tried really hard to connect with her family, put up with a lot, because I think the guilt of just him choosing himself, not the fact that because parents wanted him to marry somebody else. Because he thought, I think his thinking is, because it's my choice, I need to stay.
Well, that's the thing, because oftentimes people just don't want to, go through that often because of, self-guilt of making the decision. But when it comes to addressing that issue, right? Some people just choose not to talk for a reason. Sometimes in the context of communication, people choose to keep quiet, probably because they are not sure of how to address it, how to communicate it, or maybe perhaps they feel like it's not safe to even talk about it. What do you think?
Yeah, I do definitely think that, yes, the whole avoiding the issue and then talking about it might cause another fight can be scary for some people. So they think it's better to stay quiet than cause another fight. Do you get me? So they think if I address it or I talk about it, maybe this is going to turn worse. And at least we're still together. Maybe we're not talking sometimes, but we're still together. We're still here. We're still in the marriage. We have children. We don't want to break up the family, whether it's the lady or the gent. Maybe they'll put up with more because they think the alternative is worse.
Oh, yeah, but that sounds scary because, oftentimes when we mention about communication, the answer is to communicate. But people don't know that when it comes to communication, it's not as easy as, as you think it is, because sometimes it takes skills. I mean, we talk about this in one of the episodes in season one about communication skill, handling difficult conversations. But in this context, in this topic about, why this causes happen in relationship failure, is that when you don't even talk at all, maybe you don't even feel safe to talk about it. You'd rather just, keep quiet as long as I still have this relationship. But what about some unspoken expectations?
Yeah, yep, I think so. I think as a relationship goes forward and it evolves, you need to. This is why the Friday night date night thing is very important, because it's a private space where maybe you don't talk about anything. Maybe you just spend time, go for the walk, and just be with each other. But what it allows is if something's on your mind, because it's a good space, it's a happy place, it's somewhere you can go and say, oh, on Tuesday when you said this, it really hurt my feelings. I just wanted you to know. It's instead of saying it over breakfast when the kids are fighting and it's not the time or the place. So then you leave it, you forget about it, you leave it, you forget about it. And all it does is build up. Does that make sense? So having that safe space where you agree before you get married that like one night a week, even if we get really busy with work and other things, one night a week, we do need to give each other time where we come in and you can talk about it, like, this is what I need. Could you help me with this? I'm struggling with this. I need more support with this, or I need more money for this, and make that the safe place where you can talk about things. And then that is something that keeps the relationship connected and stops the disconnection. So definitely prevention is better than cure.
And I totally agree with that. And also, I think my personal opinion is that to also have agreement, not only before you get married, but also once you're married, when you have that date night, the night where you're supposed to provide that safe space, you are allowed to say anything, that's bothering you, or anything that you want to address, rather than, you're feeling scared to say something because you might think that the other person might use that against you. And
Mm,
because then you will never have, like, a platform to
hmm
communicate with one another,
hmm
right? And speaking of that, you mentioned about like curing is better. And what about which one is more damaging when it comes to perhaps couples may not be good in communication, but they want to express it anyway, versus you keep it to yourself and perhaps have that resentment that you never expressed.
Yeah, no, totally. I think that there's two parts to that question. So you've got one that's resentment for things unsaid, and you've got one things unsaid. So again, you've said, but you've hurt the other person's feelings, and now you're deteriorating the relationship. So I think in season one, we spoke about the sandwich effect, where you talk about something really nice about that person, say, thank you, you did this for me, I really appreciate that, etc., etc. And in the middle, you can say, on Tuesday, this was going on, and, I felt that I really needed your support and you were not there for me, so when this happens again, please do like make a point. Like if I call you and it's urgent, I need you to come home from where you're at, rather than letting me deal with a difficult situation by myself. So, and then end up with, but I appreciate you, I'm grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have a good relationship, and I'm so grateful that you're listening to me as well. So you do the sandwich effect, and then sometimes actually, Renee, people need to sit in the discomfort for a while and figure out how to deal with it, rather than just like, she said this to me or he said this to me, I'm going to quickly respond back. But I think if you can sit in the discomfort and just figure out what it is, why are you annoyed, what happened, rather than just knee-jerk reaction and immediately retaliating, because that will damage the relationship. Saying nothing will also damage the relationship, but speaking with wisdom in a calm place. So if you know that you're still agitated, don't talk about it. You know how a lot of people say, oh, don't go to bed on an argument, etc. I'm not a believer of that. I think you should say to them, look, there's something I want to talk to you about tomorrow. I'm not going to talk to you about it today because I'm tired and I'm not feeling too good. So you're going to rest, and in the morning you're going to get up and have breakfast. Then you're rested and you've eaten. You probably find it'll be a much better conversation. Or you can maybe talk about it over breakfast. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
But to talk about it when you're still angry, upset, or tired, sometimes you can make the situation worse, even though you intended to make it better.
No, this is something that I need to emphasize, because Nasim, we talk about in one of the episodes in season one, where you need to know the skill, the communication skill of when to talk about it. My personal experience, I used to be the person who wants to talk about it and find solution before I sleep at night. And most of the time it didn't work. And then after I learned from you the fact that, it's okay to delay it, pause and reflect about it and talk about it later when the time is better, oftentimes you will get a better result. And I totally agree with you about this communication tips. And moving on to the next one that I feel, one of the root causes is also about value shifts in people. I mean, let's be real, people change, but do you actually believe that people outgrow a relationship?
I think if you don't have a genuine interest in your spouse, so this is where a couple of things in common are good because you do things together. So I don't know, you play badminton together, or you have a hobby, or you do hill walking or hiking or something that you do together as friends. So it's not just about like as a duty as a wife, as a duty as a husband, you need to do these things. It's just things that you've always connected on and you've had fun doing. So I think those things will help you not outgrow your person, because maybe you go from that hobby to a different one, or you start doing other things, you still do it together as friends. So it doesn't matter what you do, it's about going through the journey as life changes. So maybe when you get older, you just go for a walk in the evening. After dinner, you just go arm in arm, and maybe you walk in silence, or maybe you catch up about the day, but you change your habits as life changes. And then maybe you do it like twice a week, where once you take the children and you go out as a family, maybe you do a bike ride, and then as a couple, you do something still. Because once the children are older and gone, it's still you and him that has to, or her and him that have to continue on with life, because kids will move on and they'll go to uni and they'll get married and they'll have their own lives to live. And yes, they'll still be in your life, but they won't be the same as they were when they were children, when they needed all your attention and pick up and drop offs from school and homeworks and this and, football sessions or gymnastic sessions or whatever else that the activities that you had to take them by. It gets busy being a parent. So I think the fundamental thing, and for the children as well, is something I don't think we've touched upon, is how nice it is for the children to see their parents getting on, because kids don't like it when their parents fight. Do you get me?
Yeah.
So if the parents have a good relationship, they can see, mom and dad get on well, and you're showing by example what a loving relationship looks like.
Yeah, that's true. But when it comes to values such as, things that you thought he or she might probably have certain values before you get married. And then over time, once you get married, things change. Especially we're talking about like, some heavy stuff, perhaps when it comes to religion. Maybe, whether one person being religious or not, or over time, one person wants to be more religious than before, but the other person does not want to be on board. Wouldn't that like drift them apart? What do you
Okay,
think?
that's a very good question, and I just listened to a recent lecture on that, and it was Ustad Haifa. I think she came to Dubai as well. So what she was talking about is, if the shift changes in religion, then you have to remember that you love your husband and your children for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, regardless of how religion they are. Yes, you can slowly drip feed it into their lives and make small suggestions, but you have to live with your decision. If you married somebody that wasn't that religious when you married them and you turn religious, then you should be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you are religious, and in time hopefully you can help change them. But to make them feel a certain way and like, oh, I'm more religious than you're not religious, and making that into a fight, that's just shaitan coming in the way, because Islam is submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everyone should pray and fast and do things. Yes, ultimately, if you get it right, and this is why having education is good, to choose somebody who already, like, for example, if hijab is important to you, fasting and going for umrah and prayers and all these things are important to you, you're very lucky if your partner evolves with you. Generally, when you begin your search, that's the things you should be on the table for you looking for before you commit to someone, because you know that you're there and this person will help you on the journey and you're doing the religious part together. However, if you chose somebody and the religious part is not important to them, you have to understand that that is the person you chose. They're not doing anything wrong. You have changed. So if you can gradually show them like how beautiful the faith is to you, and show them bit by bit. There was even a part that she said that, look, I really don't want to go on a drive with my husband because he listens to music and I don't listen to music anymore. And she goes, for the time that you're in the car, just put your earpods in and listen to Quran while he plays his music. but don't make him switch it off because he's just going to resent you more. He's not going to want to spend time with you. So don't make him feel bad for how he lived before he met you or how you chose him when you picked him in the beginning. So I thought that was quite sound advice.
Yeah, I mean, I like that, especially, when it comes to relationship with Allah. I think this is personal. Yes, you might evolve to be a better Muslim, for instance, but that doesn't mean that you can judge the other person. Everyone
Yeah.
has their own path and not supposed to affect your relationship or your marriage.
Yeah.
And moving on to the final one is actually on external factors. I feel that we talked about this as well in our previous season about, like, your career, finances, all these family expectations obviously would have impact on our relationship. But what's that one thing that you feel would cause most silent damage to relationship out of all these external factors?
Yeah. So if you have like a circle of husband and wife with your two hands and his two hands, and you have that circle relationship where you don't allow anybody else to penetrate in, it's almost like you're building a wall around your relationship. So whether it's money, it's okay. Yeah, we don't have it this month, we can buy it next month. If it's family, just listen. Don't respond, don't cause a fight. If it's her family, listen, just go, that's fine. But what you do is you don't allow it to affect your relationship. So when you speak in private and you're by yourselves, and you have to say to each other, if your mom says something or my mom says something, we do nothing because that's them and it's not part of our relationship. In our relationship, privately, we do what we want. I will do what makes you happy. Inshallah, you will do what makes me happy. What other people say or other factors, we shouldn't allow it inside our circle. So the circle should always remain strong. And then basically all the elements. So if you just think about it as the rain and the wind and the snow, if your circle is strong, all of those things, they can't penetrate your relationship. You're still good with each other. But if you let go of those two hands and then you say, oh yeah, your mom said this to me. And then, you make it into like an almost an argument or fight and they'll go, well, you shouldn't have answered her back. You shouldn't have made it worse. Then what you're doing is you're letting go of your hands and you're allowing other external factors to break down your relationship.
Yeah. And I also, when it comes to, like, yes, family influences coming in, I think another thing that people, I don't know if people actually often talk about this or not, but it's actually talking to friends. You don't want to
Mm,
be talking about your problems, but sometimes people say that, oh, yeah, I have my best friend. It doesn't matter if whether it's your best friend or your closest friend, you don't actually want to share your private matters within a family to
yeah,
others.
yeah.
And the most dangerous part, I feel that when you share it with the opposite sex. What are your thoughts
Hmm.
about this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So people do have male friends. We live in the real world, as you said. And then this, unfortunately, the situations that I've came across, when I talk about when relationships broken down, what happened, they will say, oh, she stepped out the marriage or he steps out the marriage. And why does it happen? Because you're having trouble and bang, this male friend or this female friend is right there to listen to your problems, right there to show you that they're keen and they want to understand. All they're doing is going for a fling, spending a bit of time entertaining themselves. They're not looking to spend a lifetime with you. So then you start thinking, well, this friend is a better person than my wife, or this friend is a better person than my husband. Maybe I should be married to him, or maybe I should spend time with him. And that's why people step out and they realize this other person was just a fling 9.5 times out of 10. And when they see that your relationship is broken, they're also no longer interested in you because the interest was that you were somebody else's and they wanted to win you over. So it's more about the challenge than actually you as a person. But when the person is going through it, they don't realize. They just think, oh, this person is kind to me. This person is nice to me, much nicer than my husband or much nicer than my wife. So maybe I should give this person more time.
Exactly. And this is actually a good advice, especially for those who are having issues, problems. I mean, that is normal when it comes to marriage, when it comes to relationship, but don't go out and ask for advice or those kind of things outside, asking for friends, opposite sex, because oftentimes it will lead to something that is just
Mhm.
unnecessary.
So if you have one older person in your life, like you have like somebody who's in their 40s or 50s, maybe they're a parent or a grandparent, and you know that they're a fair person, They never take anybody's side. If you spoke to them, they will always give you honest and fair advice. It wouldn't be biased advice. Then there isn't any harm, but it would need to be somebody that you respect and your husband respects as well. You both have to respect that person. So the person is not going to be on your side or your husband's side or on the wife's side or not the husband's side. And then you can maybe go to that person and say, look, this is the situation. What do you think? But you have to go, obviously there's a saying that you have to go to a wise person. You wouldn't go to a
Mm-hmm.
5-year-old and say, oh, what do I do? Or you wouldn't go like, in today's world, there's all these people in their 20s on TikTok giving like life advice. And they're like barely 19 themselves. What life advice can they give you? Does that
Exactly.
make sense? So if you're looking at them thinking, oh, this 19-year-old's going to give me advice, I'm sorry. They know less than you,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Using your intelligence. But no, definitely I wanted to point out that it's not nobody, but I get your point, Renee, where you're saying it's just your friends in your circle. And unfortunately that information might leak out to other people because you told a friend and she told her other friend. And before you know it, all these people know your private business. So, as somebody who works with relationships, I'm not in favor of sharing it in that situation. Yeah, you can talk about situations and scenarios and say, recently met this person, she was going through some trouble and this is what happened
Mm-hmm.
to her, but never
Yeah.
say it happened to you. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
just talk about the thing and maybe you want to get different opinions, but never apply it to yourself. But if you want real advice, go to a professional or go to, a wise person within your family that both of you respect. That would be like my thoughts on.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I feel that, when it comes to like having this kind of conflict, when it comes to that influence coming from outside, oftentimes it's a distraction. And that is why it's best to first talk with one another before seeking for advice, professional
Mm-hmm.
advice, of course. But yeah, speaking of this, I feel that there's so many other, factors or, that could contribute to this relationship failure. But what we're going to talk more in our upcoming episode next week is actually signs, the silent signs that your relationship is dying. All
Interesting.
right.
I like that one.
Yeah. So for our listeners, we hope that for this week's episode, that'll be useful for you to see like what are the real root causes that people don't actually talk about, and we hope that that can give you a bit of a self-reflection for you to do your relationship reset. And for more new episodes, stay tuned with us, and we shall see you next week.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.